Hey, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles postgame show presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, use promo code PHLY365 when you sign up. And it was actually a very ordinary performance from the Eagles, if not subordinary. A 33-16 loss in Tampa Bay, a result that we have come accustomed to when the Eagles travel down to Tampa Bay. Todd Bowles continues his ownership of Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts. A pretty listless performance. And yes, without A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Lane Johnson, you can make all kinds of excuses. But this was a big, fat nothing burger from the Eagles as they head to the bye 2-2. We're here to talk about it. We're going to hear from Nick Sirianni's press conference. We're going to hear from Zach Berman live at Raymond James Stadium. But before that, we hear from our panel here, Super Bowl champion Vinny Curry, Jamie Lynch, Fran Duffy. I don't know that Super Bowl champion is in the future for anybody on this team this year, Vinny.
That was bad. I lost my voice.
You're one of us now.
Yeah, that was bad, bro.
Your voice
that was
run
bad.
over like the Eagles' defense in this game.
From the time of the kickoff, the whole game just seemed so off. Like, it's just like we weren't even there.
There was never a moment in it. I mean, there was one fleeting minute when Keely Ringo returns the Isaiah Rodgers blocked extra point, and it cuts the lead to 14, and you're like, okay, maybe they got something going here. And then, they still
we felt like that when
away.
at the beginning of the second half when Saquon took the
that run, I got a little kind of lead in the pencil. Like, all right, let's make it a game here. And Saquon, you're going to need him. He made another big explosive play for the Eagles to kind of get him back in the game. And then, I mean, look, you can say what you want about the defense. You had opportunities to climb back into that game.
Yeah,
to me, the turnovers just continue rearing their head. And I know
12 straight games the Eagles have lost the turnover battle. That is insane.
That's a major problem. And you can say what you want, but like Jalen has to know, Saquon never squared that one blitzer up. He's a free rusher behind him. Like, you have to know to like go there, right? You can't really play around in the pocket. I know Brady's giving him a hard time, but like the only other option is to go. Like, so like these turnovers are just bad.
And an interception that was dropped. So, your interception, your turnover worthy plays stat. Keep that out of my business for today, friend.
I mean, that's gonna go down in the books as a turnover worthy play.
Okay. If we are being hopeful, you can squint and say, like, okay, when the offense gets Lane Johnson and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith back, they can still cook, right? The offense can still be okay. I think we can maybe lay to rest the idea that, like, Kellen Moore is some kind of Kyle Shanahan offensive guru. Like, this offense goes as their stars go. Even like their best play in this game came when Saquon Barkley busts it loose. Like, I don't know that they're getting too many huge schematic advantages on offense, but they've got good players. So as the season goes on, they're still going to have very good players. On defense, I mean, this is 3 out of 4 games now, Fran, where they have looked terrible.
That was what I was going to lead it off with, honestly, for me, because
I think that is the bigger story.
You don't have A.J. Brown, you don't have Devontae Smith, you don't have Lane Johnson. None of those 3 were going to be on the field regardless when they gave up 450 yards and 33 points to an offense that looked hapless last week against Denver. They were terrible a week ago. They were not good 2 weeks ago, Tampa Bay, on offense. And they gave up, I mean, from the jump. And that's why, I mean, from the moment the Bucs had the ball to start this game felt you were already playing from behind. This was a really, really tough performance coming off what we all felt could be a turning point for the defense a week ago, to come back this week and have, I mean, double-digit missed tackles. I know they flashed the one graphic. It was 11 at one point, but I'm sure they had another 1 or 2 after that. And so you're talking 12, 13, 14 missed tackles on the afternoon. Just a really terrible outing from the Eagles defense.
Baker Mayfield, 30 of 47 for 342, 2 touchdowns and an interception. They scored touchdowns on 3 of their first 4 possessions. And there were like 7 drops on offense for the Bucs too.
Should have been more, no doubt.
It was crazy how little, effort it seemed like they were playing with on defense. And I don't want to, effort is a tough thing, but it was just so easy for that offense. It's like 80% success rate their first couple drives. Like, I mean, what do they do well on that side of the ball, right? Like, Quinyon Mitchell has some nice flashes. Zach Bond makes some big hits. Jalen Carter, after an absolute monster performance last week, pretty quiet today.
Sweat was close a bunch.
Yeah. I think we saw like the first Bryce Huff pressure of the season in this game, which was nice to see.
And you said the Jalen Carter experience is like a real mind F, because sometimes you see him last week where he just dominates a game start to finish. And Vinny, you can expand on this about what my dumb eye is missing. And then it's just like there's no consistency to it. What's the hardest part about him becoming consistent week in and week out? Because this defense needs Jalen Carter to be a dominant player.
Well, we got to see if they were sliding to him or not, because as you can see, Josh was getting free.
Mm-hmm.
They was winning their one-on-ones.
And the ball was coming out quick.
That's what I'm saying. And so, I'm pretty sure that he was getting double-teamed or something, or bounced around in that middle. But consistency is the key.
Yeah.
As we talked about last week, you got to be consistent. It's one thing, to come out last week and do what you do, and then this week we just need consistent from the whole entire defense. We can't go forward, especially coming out the bye, playing the way we're looking right now. It ain't gonna work.
I know, Vinny, you've been on the field at times when the quarterback drops back and he hits the top of his drop and the ball is out time after time after time. And it felt that was what was going on in the first half of this game, especially those first couple drives. I wasn't sitting there saying, where's the rush? It was more that everything just looked easy for Baker Mayfield. It's like they were playing with 13, 14 guys on offense. How frustrating is that when you're a defensive lineman?
It's very frustrating, because therefore you got frustration that's sitting, and then you got to think about the heat. It's like a monkey on your back. So it's like you just dragging. And that's what we saw. They strike first, and then they kept striking. And then it was one of those, got to stop the bleeding, got to stop the bleeding, got to stop the bleeding.
Yep.
But it was one thing after another, man. And like I said, going forward, we can't look like that.
Yeah, and to stop the bleeding, your point, Fran was charting it and, talking out loud. There was on that, after the Saquon, big run, and offense kind of gets you back in the game, there's a 3rd and 7 and a 3rd and 11, and the defense can't get off the field.
Yep.
I mean, those are just backbreaking to a defense.
3rd and 8 too. Yeah, I mean, all kinds of failures on 3rd down, and usually they were getting first downs on 1st and 2nd down.
Yeah, well, and that's what the big thing is. If you're going to come back from 3 touchdowns down, you need both sides to be able to make those plays. And look, just last night, Vinny, I don't want to speak for you, but Bo, I know you watch it, Jamie watch it. The Georgia-Alabama game, we saw Georgia come back in a football game where they're down 3 or 4 scores, and that's because you had that complementary football. You had everybody on both sides making plays, and so the offense comes out. Exactly what we talked about at halftime. Hey, lean on the run game. It's a 0-0 game. If you go out and you score a touchdown in the opening drive, now all of a sudden it's a 10-point game and you're back in it. The defense gets to 3rd and long twice on that drive and you can't get off the field. And then the next drive comes up and the same thing happens. You have to be able to win on those downs if you plan to come back from 2, 3, 4 scores down.
Now, to our point of how quickly he was getting rid of the ball, just look this up on True Media. This may change. Right after the game, there's a little bit of wiggle room. But according to True Media, Baker Mayfield's time to throw in this game, 1.95 seconds, which is the quickest in a single game for any quarterback this season.
That's not pass rush. That's not pass rush. That's the back 7 not doing enough to be able to contest those throws.
I'm telling you, if they will get this fixed, man, they're going to have to start sponsoring me with halls, because I'm going to stop screaming at the damn TV, man. Like, I ain't got no voice.
You heard that ad sales? Everybody hear that? So is Vic able to adjust to that in game? Like, is he able to just go, all right, we're press covering now?
Yeah, what is the adjustment? What is
jam
the adjustment
at the line?
If they're getting the ball out that quick, what do you do on defense?
So, you just definitely comes in with the back, rather it's, it's the linebackers tying some things in, rather some zone pressure in. Dropping into your spots, because the ball coming out quick. So therefore, he's throwing to. He already know where he's predetermined where the ball got to go. When it's coming out that quick. So there must be some leaks out the week that he saw that he tried to attack, and that's the one thing I was saying is, when you come out, you kept striking, and they was working. We was trying to stop the bleeding, but next thing you know, you look up, we already playing way behind.
Yep,
and that was a problem.
Now, from just a circumstances of the game perspective, if we're trying to sort of make excuses for the Eagles, you played on the Bucs. You were in that building. When teams were coming there in September, it was 100 degrees on the field, it felt like, right?
104, feel like.
Is that like, in the building, is that like, we know we have the advantage here? Like,
absolutely. They put the away team in the sun.
Right.
You see everybody over there, they had tents, shades, all type of craziness. Like, yeah, they do that on purpose. That's why you got to hydrate. You got to hydrate Whether is it
I think
through
there's a couple guys in this game leave with cramps.
Yeah, you got to do it even on Thursday or Friday, and then once you get down there, the day before the game.
Yeah, Juergens left with a cramp. Carter left with a cramp. Blankenship was an illness. It definitely, Goddard was out for a little bit. It definitely seemed like the heat affected the Eagles in a pretty major way.
Yeah, I mean, right now on defense through 4 games, unless the opposing offense is playing like Newt Rockne style 1950s heavy formation football, the Eagles defense has been terrible. It has been, they've been really, really bad. And I don't know what the hope is. Now, there's some potential things that they can, like, maybe Sidney Brown comes back after the bye week. He can start practice. He can be involved somehow. Maybe Cooper DeJean replaces Avonte Maddox in the slot after that. But, like, if this defensive line is not going to – I know this game is not on the defensive line. We agree with that. But, like, if you're hoping for the upside, long-term, Jalen Carter, if he has these big flashes. I mean, they started this game with Milton Williams and Brandon Graham on the outside, on the edge, in order to stop the run. They don't trust those guys on the outside to wreak havoc right now.
I'm saying we gotta set those edges. But like you said, they was getting that ball out so freaking fast.
Yeah. Do you think is that on like pre-snap disguise on Vic? Because like if he's able to get rid of the ball so quickly, like you're saying, he's trusting what he sees pre-snap. Right. He knows where it's going. Is there more that they need to be doing pre-snap?
Gonna have to, because let's be honest, that number one thing is coming in this week. We talked about last week. Fred, correct me if I'm wrong. Is how great the D-line looked. How as a unit. Yeah. First thing they said is, "Well, we're gonna take the D-line out the game, and this is what we're gonna do."
One thing I'm interested to see, and you mentioned what that front looked like. My guess is that was not by design. Like, the Eagles didn't come out saying, "All right, this is how we're going to start this football game." My guess, without watching the play, is that the Tampa Bay Bucs came out in some kind of heavy personnel and spread the Eagles out, because they saw a decent amount of empty from Tampa Bay in this game. Spread the Eagles out, and that's how you end up with, I know there's screen grabs out there of like Nolan Smith one-on-one with Chris Godwin in the slot. When you come out in 12 personnel and then you're going to always match it with base, if you spread them out, well, now you're going to have a defensive end outside linebacker having to walk out into your over number 2 or over number 3. And my guess is that's going to lead into some of the things where the ball's going to come out fast, because now if you're Baker Mayfield, that's the matchup you're taking all day. You're going to take the wide receiver going up against the edge rusher. And we praised Vic Fangio and the defensive staff for making that adjustment a week ago. But this is, there's pluses and minuses to everything. This is one of the downfalls to playing that way, is that then you can get out formationed by the opposing offense.
And also, as you said, a bunch of missed tackles in this game.
Too many.
Avonte Maddox had a few. Nakobe Dean had a few. C.J. Gardner-Johnson had several. I mean, I don't know, Vinny. Is that just is that want to? Is that just fundamentals? What are the coaches harp on in team meetings when you're struggling with tackling?
You got to go back to the basics. I'm pretty sure they've been preaching that, because we've been talking about the missed tackles from the first game and the second game. It can't continue to happen. You got a bye week coming up. Let's try to get this thing fixed. Let's try to get back on track, because we need some type of consistency. We need some type.
Yeah, defensively, it's just not very inspiring right now. When you see 12 missed tackles out there on top of, a 3rd and 7 let up, a 3rd and 11, like, there was just nothing going their way defensively today. You didn't see like the heart and kind of hustle you wanted to see out there. I know they were dropping like flies, but Vinny, we talked about it during the course of the game. The body language was not like excellent during this game by any means. Really just not much to be inspired about defensively after today.
You kind of felt like they were saying, damn, how much time left?
Yeah.
Damn, let's get out of here.
Yeah, it felt like they threw it in. I mean, they took Saquon off the field essentially in the fourth quarter once they were down 17, right? Yeah. Like, and just giving the ball to Kenny Gainwell, which, I mean, big picture, probably the
smart
right decision.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, it never felt like this team was ready to play today.
No, not at all. Just from the jump. It was total opposite of last week. Like Jalen Carter last week, first play, boom, right through the line, impact play, pockets disrupted. We talked about it. The Saints kind of marched down the field and death by 1,000 paper cuts, but you were happy with the way they looked, the edges that were set, the stops in the run game. Today was the total opposite, where he's just like, Baker Mayfield had his way with the Eagles defense.
A big thing that we talked about over the course of the week too is, the Eagles defense. We talk about the missed tackles and it just being about the run game, but when you have an offense that likes to get the ball out fast and it's going to be a lot of underneath stuff, you've got to be able to make those tackles in the passing game as well. And I was just looking at the missed tackle numbers. It's split right down the middle in terms of run game, pass game. You had guys coming from depth, Nakobe Dean taking a bad angle, or Reed Blankenship bouncing off guys. I mean, too many missed tackles in the secondary, and some of them were on those critical second and third down plays where it should, instead of it being 4th and 3, well, now it's 1st and 10. Instead of it being 3rd and 5, well, now it's a first down. So, I mean, the tackling across the board, and it's not just a run defense thing, the tackling across the board has to get better.
On offense, we talked about the turnovers. How much of a concern is this for you with the way that Jalen Hurts is playing right now, Fran?
I mean, it's too much of it's obviously they've got to clean it up. It's too much of a theme. To me, like you look at the interception last week and you say, okay, well, that's not on Jalen. That's more on Devontae. And we talked about that here in the show, and the film kind of backed that up. I think that when you look at it overall, though, I mean, as an operation, they've got to cut them down. And over at some point, we look at each one and said, this is not on Jalen. This is not on Jalen. This is not on Jalen. But at the end of the day, it's just like what Nick Sirianni will always say, like, the things are on me. When you're talking about the pass game and turnovers, it does fall on Jalen at a certain point to be able to take better care of the football. I'll look at the film and see exactly what happened on a couple of these. Obviously, you had the near pick six that was a near disaster there in the fourth quarter as well. On top of it, but I mean, that's you said 12 games in a row they've lost the turnover battle. That's not a winning formula.
Yeah, no,
you're not going to win games doing that.
And then it was like I said, those sack strips. I don't even think he saw those coming,
Yeah.
So that's just something that we'll have fixed, coming when we get Lane back and Jalen get his guys back.
It always seems to come, like, I hate the hero ball, but like it always seems to come when he's trying to extend the play. And sometimes, great quarterbacking is just knowing when to eat it, knowing when to throw it away. Eli Manning for years got away with just, the intentional grounding, just getting rid of it at people's feet.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like Jalen gets himself in these turnover problems when he's trying to keep it alive, when he's trying to just not accept a defeat of the play.
And certainly, like, the game flow of this game was kind of unideal for what the Eagles needed.
Sure.
And, I mean, for them to fall down 14-0 when they've only had one possession,
right?
Knowing that they don't have their weapons on offense, like they were going to have to be coming from behind. Like, obviously, that's not the way that they wanted this game to go. And still, Saquon 10 for 84 with a 59-yard carry. So other than that, he's not getting the ball that much, and it's not super productive. Goddard 7 for 62, and nobody else more than 32 yards receiving. We've talked about, you give up the 3rd-round pick for Jahan Dotson for exactly situations like this.
Who?
2 catches for
outside
11
of
yards.
A mesh pick. I haven't seen the guy.
Like, it's not ideal. What did you make of the game plan today, Fran, on offense?
Honestly, it's tough because when you start the first 3 drives going 3 and out, it's not like you throw the game plan out, but you couldn't get a sense of what their goals were coming in, because right off the bat, they're down 21-0 because they couldn't get into any kind of rhythm. I mean, you give up the first 3 drives end on two sacks, and then you had 3 incompletions on the second 3 and out. So when you go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, you don't get into any kind of rhythm as a play caller. You don't get any kind of sense of what they wanted to do coming in, and that's why it was so important. We talked about, hey, if they come out in the third quarter and they score a touchdown on that first drive, they're still very much in this football game. It was the turn. It was the turn of the third quarter into the fourth quarter. Jamie, I turned and I said, this is going to be the most important defensive possession of the football game. If the Eagles can't get a stop here and they're down 3 scores early in the fourth quarter, they're not going to be able to catch up given this in this offensive personnel, in this ecosystem. Because if you take the run game out, if you take Saquon out and you take all the frills away, they just didn't have the horses to be able to compete. And so that's almost what you could point at early on in this football game and say, you were playing on the Bucs terms. I thought that Tom Brady put this perfectly at the end, was right from the jump, they were playing the Bucs game. And that was not a winning formula for them without A.J. Brown, without Devontae Smith, without Lane Johnson.
And with no Lane Johnson, this was the first time in a game this season we've seen the offensive line really struggle. It seems like Hurts was sacked 6 times in this game. Now, Cam Jurgens missed some time. It was interesting that Landon Dickerson moved to center and Tyler Steen came in at left guard, as opposed to just Nick Gates stepping in at center. The opposite of what you would think that Jeff Stoutland likes to do, only move one thing. So that was interesting. But, Mailata gets beat around the edge. Dickerson gets beat on one of those sacks. Vita Vea was dominating this game. Offensive line, not so great today.
No, and I will say that it is it's harder to, if you're dealing with the heat as an offensive line,
Yeah.
It's harder to pass protect than it is to run the football. You're going in reverse. Especially if those guys are running the hoop on you time and time again. It is harder to pass protect in that environment. But yeah, I mean the offensive line was not good enough certainly in this.
Yeah, you saw Jordan Mailata on one of those last plays just get cooked around the edge, and I couldn't even. I was just like, yeah, dude's gassed. Like you could just see it. He had nothing left. They went to him once on the sideline, and like the beard was sweating. Like there was just sweat coming out of sweat. And I think those dudes were just cooked at the end.
And two of those guys on the Bucs defense, Vinny, guys you played with that I kind of want to ask you about. I mean, Levante David has killed the Eagles forever. I mean, that guy is so good. What was he like as a teammate?
Oh man, true leader. He really thrives in and the way they scheme him up. He's like probably one of the best blitzing inside middle linebackers in the game. Maybe of all time in that game. Definitely a future Hall of Famer in himself. And then to see Vita,
so he was a rookie when you were there,
that's what I'm
right?
saying. Like to see him like thrive in the way he's been thriving. He was going to be an elite player. He's just a strong human being.
Did you know it like immediately as soon as you saw him on the field? Like, damn, this guy's got it.
Yeah. So my quick little story. Everybody had kids or whatever. My son had to be like 1, and he's like Maui. And I was like, damn, he ain't shaped like Maui.
That's so good.
Noah, the zinger.
No, 7 years old now, but 1, he's like Maui.
Demigod.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
Does Vita lead into that?
Oh, he loves it. It's part of it's part of like his character now.
That's so good.
His thing, man.
So does he get a tattoo today of just kicking the Eagles' ass?
That's great.
Yeah,
Walks over to Sirianni, says, "What can I say except you're welcome?"
Got the whole, from the islands over there.
That's
Even
so
out,
good.
man, the kids go crazy.
Bo, I threw this in the Slack because I saw it just as the game started. You see this? Speaking of Levante David, apparently Eagles linebacker Devin White retweeted a post mid-game about Levante David's forcing a fumble against his own old team. Yikes.
Now, Devin White did not travel, was listed as out for this game for personal reasons. So
I hope that's not true. Because that's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible that this.
Yes, it's not the most credible. It's an aggregator account that's putting it out there. But like, if that is true,
Greg Alman, who covers the Bucs, also tweeted.
Oh, it originated with him. Okay, that's not a great look at kind of the culture here.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but I mean, Devin White hasn't played a game for the team yet, so.
But
he could have been here watching the game with us. I mean, yeah, he didn't make the trip.
It's
a tough one. Yeah.
All right, we will hopefully hear from Sirianni soon and see what he has to say about what was a very ugly performance from the Eagles. If you try to sort of take a step back and just think big picture through 4 games now, how do you feel about this team? Let's start with you, Fran.
I mean, they're 2-2.
It's a very mediocre team.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's the old you are what your record says you are, and they look like a 2-2 football team. They look like an inconsistent team. And so you take the bye, you lick your wounds, you try and obviously they need to get healthy. The bye's we're going to hear this a lot this week. The bye's coming at a great time for this team.
Yeah, it's not coming at a good time for Nick Sirianni's ears.
No, he's not.
Because there's going to be a lot of Sirianni talk over the next 2 weeks.
But I think that for the players, this is an opportunity it's going to be uncomfortable. My guess, Vinny, tell me if I'm wrong. There's going to be uncomfortable conversations on the plane ride home and probably over the course of the next few days before the guys go on the break. But it's time for this team to look in the mirror because it is going to be a big turning point when they come back from the bye. All eyes are going to be on this team to try and turn the corner.
Yeah, I think the optimist in me says, all right, you kind of survived, worst case scenario where Zach said in the pregame show, 3/5 of their best players are Lane Johnson, Devontae Smith, and A.J. Brown. You're missing 3/5 of your best players. So part of me goes, all right, well, I can't really fairly judge them because their big horses aren't there for them. On the other hand, I go, wow, this defense is a sieve and this is a problem and they suck. So, it's kind of like, the angel and the devil on my shoulder going, all right, bro, there's still a chance, You get AJ back, you get Devontae back, Lane back, you're going to be all right. And then I go, well, the defense looks like trash.
I don't know, Vinny, when you watch this team, how do you feel?
You're one of us now, getting to watch it on the couch with the blood pressure.
Yeah, you said it. You know what I'm saying?
How do you guys do this?
Yeah, man, it's just crazy. But I'm not going to hit the panic button yet. You know,
somebody needs to be an adult here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not going to hit the panic button yet. You know, I will say this can't continue on to October football.
Right.
Because if to reach January and December football, we got to take care of business. And now, you know, September's out the way. Now we'll just, you know, buckle down and just, you know what I mean, do things simple. You know what I mean? Whether it's having that hard conversation, you might have to start Brandon Graham.
Yeah.
You might have to play more.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know? And I know B Body probably like, damn. But you might have to play more though.
This is not what I signed up for.
Because at the same time, at least you know you know how the edge is going to be set. And I'm not saying that the guys can't do it, but let him show them how it should look. You know, there's some things that got to get cleaned up. You know, defensively they get their weapons back on offense, and let's just really put this thing together. So I'm not going to hit the panic button.
Hassan Reddick for Bryce Huff. Just let's call it even. Redo on the whole trade.
I think.
I mean, maybe the Eagles eat some of the Huff money.
I think the fans will go crazy. I think the fans will.
I think Hassan would like it at this point.
Right, man. You know, or it could be one of those things. You know, they might have to scheme huff up a little different.
Well, I don't want to ruin Bryce Huff day. He did show up on the stat sheet, guys. 1 tackle. So we have a non-goose
second time
egg
this season. That's good.
So
that's great.
It's a big breakout day for him.
So after the bye, next 4 games for the Eagles. Home against the Browns.
They
Team that
stink.
Struggled.
Good defense.
At the Giants. A 1-player team. At the Bengals. And then home against the Jags to play your boy Doug Peterson. So
3 of those 4 are very winnable.
So let's talk about it. Coming after the bye, you think Jim not going to come in here and not want to win this game?
Yep. You're absolutely right about that.
Well, I'm just saying, especially, you know, like, yo, we got to get this thing rolling. We got to get our SHIT together.
Yep. No, I think that when you look at this team, obviously there's going to be a lot talked about over the next couple weeks. And as a player, obviously everybody says they unplug. You're not going to hear any of the outside noise. But during the bye, is that harder to do or is that easier to do? If you're hey, this is family time, or you're going to kind of check out a little bit.
Well, during the bye, you want to just get your body back right, reset the mind frame, and understand the goal. The goal is to have a shot, you know, to have a shot at the trophy. And we used to say, yo, the goal is to be in the tournament, which is the playoffs. So that's the goal.
Yep.
You know, once you hit the reset button and understand like why'd you put your body through the sacrifice from the summer to now is up to this point. So now it's time for guys just to show up. It's just to show up. You know, we can sit here and say, oh, you got to show up. Everybody get paid to do a job. You got to do your job. You got to show up.
And I think that part of the situation here, Vinny, and you have been on other teams as well, so I'm curious what you think. To me, the Eagles have always been a player-centric organization. It is the players who sort of carry the weight, right? You know, Nick Sirianni is not like the most like follow me into battle kind of coach.
Well,
like,
to your point, Reed Blankenship and Jalen Hurts spoke to the locker room after last week. You know what I mean? Like Nick Sirianni just went, "Yep, you guys got it."
And for so long there have been those, you know, the Jason Peterses, right? The Fletcher Coxes, the guys like you who have sort of carried that torch. There are not quite as many of those guys on the team now, but there are still some. The player accountability of it, and we are the guys who have to carry this team. Like, who does that fall on this team? Jalen?
Brandon Graham, Jalen, you know,
Lane.
AJ, Lane. There's still some caliber guys here that actually played in the last Super Bowl, so they understand what the formula and what it takes to win.
Yep.
You know, well, when the accountability meets expectation is we could like to call the Philadelphia way. So, but if the accountability is not meeting the expectation, and that's what give us problems like what we're having right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the hope is they just have enough talent. Like, and when AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Lane Johnson get back, that they can still be a top 5-ish offense. Like, I think that's the most realistic hope for this team.
Sure. And Jalen's best, chance of pulling out of this is getting those 2 back because, drops today. But the record with and without Lane Johnson is one of the most mind-blowing stats about the Eagles over the last decade. I mean, they're I think 7 or 8 win below 500 team without Lane Johnson. That just continues again today. So, I think that's a huge deal. And A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith change a lot. Now you just got to hope that outside of the turnovers, Jalen's looked fairly good.
Yeah, I mean, today was not.
Today
super
was
good.
not.
Today was definitely his worst.
His worst of the year.
It's part of the conversation of like, how do you evaluate him outside of the context of him having one of the most quarterback-friendly situations in the league? When that wasn't the case today, he looked bad.
Yeah, I mean the turnovers. The other thing too about it, if you look at and we talk about hey, he leads the NFL in turnovers since the start of last season, right? Second behind him is Josh Allen, and third or fourth behind him is Patrick Mahomes. And I'm not saying that Jalen is Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, but there is a gray area, right? Because the other guy on that list is Sam Howell. He's not as bad as Sam Howell. So it's a matter of trying to find that spot in the middle of that where, you got to toe that line between being that playmaker and also being able to be judicious and take care of the football. And I think more often than not, some of those are good turnovers, right? Like those are, that's a perfectly fine play, or that's just a missed throw. The decision was fine, and Devontae didn't run a great route, whatever it is in any individual play. But it goes back to what we said earlier. In the aggregate, like they've got to cut these turnovers down, or they also have to start getting some turnovers on defense, because that's the other part of it too. You're losing the turnover battle because you're not getting takeaways on the other side of the football.
Yeah, today Josh Sweat came down on May. I don't know how Mayfield held on to that one, but I thought Sweat was going to get one.
And there were a couple of tipped balls that were so close.
I think that was BG with his hand on the one.
The one Jordan Davis hit and C.J. Gardner-Johnson went right through his hands. I mean, they got to make some plays. Yeah.
Well, if you're feeling like more optimistic than maybe we are, and you want to sort of rep the merch, we do have some new merch for you on the PHLY locker, including
I think Vinny inspired
to a Vinny inspired Saquon.
Don't make him try and do it with his voice right now.
So there you go.
Fire.
Saquon.
Come on, y'all. We got to make that sell out.
A bit of an act. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. probably made like the third best play of this game when he recovered that fumble outside of the Ringo score and the Saquon run, and then maybe a forward-thinking Cooper DeJean shirt if he replaces Avonte Maddox down the stretch there. So check out the PHLY locker. You guys want to talk about the special teams miscues?
I was just going to say, Cooper DeJean has to get over having enemies on the team first before he can get playing time.
I mean, Isaiah Rodgers shoves a guy into him, then Keely Ringo truck sticks him, and then the two of them combine to make a good play by blocking the punt and then returning it. That was a hell of a return from Keely Ringo.
That was sick.
Yeah, I mean, great play, athletic play, from Keely Ringo.
And I thought Rodgers was about to get that field goal too.
Yeah, he was very, very close. But the ones on punt return are boneheaded plays, both of them. You can't have those. The muffed punt is like one of the most game tilting kind of plays, because you get a stop on defense and you immediately give them 60 yards at another possession.
It was the only stop they had the whole first half.
Yeah, I mean, that's brutal to give that up.
And I actually think that the Rodgers one is worse than the Ringo one, because I think the Ringo one might have been, you were speculating too, might have been on DeJean for not saying out loud where he was.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, it was a miscommunication of some sort, obviously.
Peter.
Yeah.
Poison, whatever it is. Yep, exactly.
But the Rodgers one, like, what are you doing? Just why are you shoving that guy right there? Like, come on, man.
Yeah, that was pretty disastrous.
That was tough. All right, we are still. I think we got Nick Sirianni. So let's hear what the head coach has to say about his bad performance today. Not his, but the team's.
Pretty early on there. How do you explain that kind of performance from the team?
Yeah, we obviously didn't start good or start well. I mean, down 24-0 to start things off. Obviously, no excuse for that. We didn't come out. We didn't coach well enough, and we didn't play well enough.
Why did you look so disorganized and disciplined? I mean, your teams to this point have been, no matter what the talent level, you've been pretty cohesive.
Yeah. I felt like, again, I say we didn't coach well enough, we didn't play well enough, and that's always going to start with me. If we go out there and lay an egg and we're down 24-0, that's going to start on me. I didn't have the guys ready to start. But our fundamentals, all right, weren't what we needed it to be. We'll make sure that we're working hard on that. And the bye week's coming at a good time. We got to get our bodies right, and we got to make some changes as far as what's going on fundamentally. early on in the game, I thought we had some missed tackles. Thought we had a couple drops. And those are going to stop drives, and those are going to extend drives. And that's where we got it. That's where it's going to have to start with fundamentals. Then it's going to be looking at where what kind of positions we're putting the guys in. But yeah, we didn't play well enough, like you said, and coach well enough fundamentally, penalty wise, everything.
Saquon had two carries in the first 3 possessions. What was behind?
Yeah, we had 9 plays. I mean, you had 9 plays, and 3 of them are third downs. So now, he had 2 carries on 6 plays. I mean, that's the way. I mean, when you go 3 and out, that no one's going to have any touches. Nobody's going to have any nobody's going to have any catches. We weren't sustaining drives. It's another. We can say what about the defense, but we weren't sustaining drives on offense, and so. They were on the field a lot early on and a lot of plays. But I think if you see the flow of the game, you understand why that happened. But I mean, obviously we want them to get the touches of the ball. But when you don't sustain drives, then you're not going to be able to. Obviously, on the one where we did, get into it, I think it was at the 4th drive where we scored, or 5th, 4th. Then. You got a first down. You're able to go on the ball. You're able to get them a couple carries there. But again, and so on 2nd and 12, I mean, you can run it there to try to get them another carry, but you're trying to get yourself a little bit back to make sure you're in a 3rd and manageable. Listen, we didn't coach well enough. We didn't play well enough, and that again.
It's obviously a big focus of yours, anything really, but you've lost turnover battle in every game. -6 now.
-6.
What goes into that? And also, more specifically, Jalen's pocket presence. Is that a concern, and how do you fix that?
No, strip sack fumbles like that Jalen's getting ready to throw. That's not when you look at there's when the guy's coming from behind on you and gets the ball out. That's not Jalen. But Jalen gets credited for that. And so, again, I'll have to look at the tape and see what happens, but. When this game is always going to come down to the details and fundamentals. Like, did you tackle well enough? Did you take care of the ball well enough? Did you come after the ball yourself well enough? Did you block well enough? Yeah. And I just didn't think our details and fundamentals were up to our par, up to our standard. And again, when that happens, you got to look at yourself in the mirror first, and I'm myself in the mirror first. Are we doing the right things at practice? Are we doing the right drills? Are we doing so? We'll do a deep dive into not only scheme this upcoming week, sitting at 2-2 at the bye, but we'll also look at how are we helping these guys become better fundamentally. Again, with drills, with what we do at practice, with how we watch the tape, everything will be dissected, trying to get a win off the bye.
How did you think Jalen mentioned that they didn't really know yet what the team's identity was? That's something that you're going to maybe figure out coming out of the bye. Do you know yet what this team's identity is?
I think it's early, and I think there's a lot of teams' stories unwritten right yet. I don't think, again, you have some base things that you think that you do well, but to say, we know what our identity is. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just we're going to figure out what we do well. We're going to try to continue to do that, see what we don't do well, try to get out of that, and then try to mesh some of the things that together.
I know you said the turnovers are a team stat in terms of the fumble in the pocket. But are you working with Jalen maybe any differently during the week leading up to games? Because it has been a few weeks now where your turnovers are coming.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, all the guys are working their butts off as far as the turnover go. Again, we'll have to relook at ourselves as coaches to see if we're putting them in doing the right things with them, because we're not winning. At the end of the day, we're -6. So we all got to own that. We all got to put our name on that. So, we'll reevaluate that, and obviously I haven't done good enough job of that to date, because we weren't last year. We weren't great at the turnover battle, and this year we're not. So we'll like I said, everything will be scheme, fundamentals will all be evaluated, because I said it last week. You can't. This is not sustainable when you don't win the turnover battle and you're down -6 on it. So. everything will be evaluated.
The report suggested that when he expected to play last night, can you offer clarity as far as his situation?
Yeah, at the end of the day, he didn't pass protocol.
What was the defensive game plan?
Sorry?
What was the defensive game plan?
Just to make sure, again, tackle well, try to get after the quarterback. Listen, we didn't do a good enough job on that. But it's always going to start with fundamentals of how we get off blocks, how we defeat blocks, how we tackle. To tell you, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to say that here's what we were going to do on third down, here's what we were going to do on P10. I'm not going to get into that. But we didn't play good enough either offensively or defensively. And we didn't coach well enough on either side. And when the shift of time of possession is what it was in that first half, we didn't do a good enough job on offense of giving our defense a rest with the 9 plays that we had early in the first 3 drives. So a lot contributed to that. Again, just that all starts with me.
Isaiah Rodgers said he was doing a veteran move to try and maybe get a flag on that punt return. How much, whenever you're working through fundamentals, do you have leeway for guys who have
anytime. Yeah, I mean, you guys still got to play by the rules of what you do. Again, we made a mistake there. Anytime you have a contact into them, they're gonna pick that flag up every single time. So a couple things went into that. Again, we got to make sure that we're coaching it better. It wasn't if the guys make a mistake out there, we're going to look at ourselves first, and we'll get that cleaned up. But I mean, we got to make sure we're catching the punt and fair catching in the right time. And then Isaiah can't do what he did in that particular case. They'll be the first ones to tell you guys that.
Possession, do you think, obviously the defense was out there a lot more than the offense in the first half, but there were offensive players that cramped up.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you guys were prepared for the conditions?
Yeah, I mean, again, there was guys on both sides going down as far as the cramping, and with the heat. We did what we normally do as far as the heat games with our hydration throughout the week. I know this team's in good shape because they work their ass off to be in good shape with the way we practice, and then also the extra conditioning that they're doing in the weight room. That we knew that, I don't remember what, maybe it was in the broadcast meeting. We knew with a hot game like this, it was going to take everybody, all hands on deck, and we needed everybody. Again, it didn't work out, but we knew in this type of game there were going to be guys going in and out because of the heat, and it'd take a rotation by everybody to try to get the thing done. But obviously we didn't.
You spoke about the strip sack as like an isolated thing there, but if you think globally here, it's been a pattern in some of these scoring situations. How do you address that with Jalen?
Yeah, again, the only thing that you talk about there is, when you are moving in the pocket, as far as just the ball security, when you are moving in the pocket, to have 2 hands on the ball in the pocket. But when you're sitting here and you're about to throw it like this, and somebody come hit you from behind, there's really not. Again, you talk about the rhythm of the throw, things like that, trying to get it out in time. Guys have to win down the field when that happens. But yeah, it's hard. The quarterback again will get the sack if he's here like this, and the guy. But it's hard to. There's many things that go into it, and I'm not saying it could be the call that we made. It could be the protection by a back or an offense lineman. It could be somebody didn't win down the field. It could be he held on to it too long. There's so many things that go into that, but he's going to get that credited to him. At the end of the day, it's a team game and it's on all of us, right? And to be -6, we all own that. All of us are responsible, starting with me as the head football coach. Again, that stat, it's because that -6 is on offense and defense. So if we're not taking the ball well enough, and we're not protecting it well enough, that look no further than me. But again, we'll look at every turnover that we have this upcoming week. We'll analyze it. We'll figure out more what's going on. We got a good idea, but we got to get better at that.
Last one, guys. What's the first thing that you want to dive into?
Yeah, we've been starting slow on offense. Obviously they came down and scored right away today on defense. So I think it's been both sides, but we haven't scored on any of our opening drives. So we got to start faster on offense. we'll, like I said, we'll look into that. Sometimes, we've had different variations of how drives have started. But that'll be one of the first things we look at. How do we go down and go up 7-0, or how do we go down and go up 7-3, or whatever it is. We got to do a better job of starting fast. And I'll look at everything. I'll look at what we're calling, how we're playing, anything we can do in practice to simulate it. I mean, that's what you look at if something's not going the way you want it to go, whether it's red zone, whether it's third down. You look as a coach of how can I simulate this. So, maybe it's something like that. Haven't had to do that yet, but everything will be on the table. All that matters is that these guys continue to get better, and that us as coaches get better. And I mean, that's all that matters. We're sitting at 2-2 going into our bye week, and all we can do is improve, and that's all we're going to try to do this upcoming week.
All right, thanks.
All right, so there you have Nick Sirianni. We'll hear from Jalen Hurts as well. Vinny, I'm looking at the comments a little bit, and there's, I think, understandably, a lot of frustration with Nick Sirianni. There's a lot of people saying, like, get him out of here, hire Belichick, all this stuff, which sounds a little bit nuts. But as a player, how much do you hear that your coach is under fire, and like, how does that make you feel?
Oh man, it's just this thing go hand in hand. If you're not performing the way you're being coached, or they bring you here to perform, it ain't gonna fall on you. It's gonna fall on you to a certain extent, but it's also gonna fall on the coach. It's unfortunate. You know what I mean? Like, he's right. Once you get in this bye week, you heard him. Back to fundamentals.
Yep.
Back to switching some things up. He knows what's going on, and that's great. That comes from a great coaching staff that they acknowledge that for everyone. And like I said, coming out the bye, it got to look different.
All right. Well, we'll get into more of all of this, but first, a word from our friends at Bet365, where it's never ordinary. Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide, and they live stream over 780,000 events each year with early payout offers across the NBA, NFL, NHL, and MLB. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Use the code PHLY365 to sign up, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get $200 in bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Jamie, how do we do on the best bets today?
You hit yours, big money payout.
Saquon, nice.
Saquon over 30
yards on the 30-yarder.
I hit my Goddard over.
And I certainly did not hit my Johnny Wilson over 2.5 catches.
Yeah, and I didn't hit my Saquon 2+ touchdowns either.
Okay, but both in the money.
Yeah, we both we broke even.
I was.
Well, yeah, you're actually up.
Yeah, I'm up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're not all you from last year when you were killing it. Still pretty good. Certainly better than the Eagles today. Bet365 has their single game parlay Sundays as well, where you can place qualifying parlay bets totaling $20 or more on Sunday's NFL games and get up to $25 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions apply. Download the app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up, and you can get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Yeah, you hear my man Vinny's voice. He needs a Ricola or a Halls or something for his voice. And you can get all that and more over at Rite Aid. Not only do they have snacks, they got all the over-the-counter stuff that you might possibly need, but they also have a great and helpful pharmacy department. Vinny could walk right in and say, hey, my voice is shot. What can I do here? They might say, hey, there's a chamomile tea with some honey over there. Here's some Halls. Here's a humidifier. Go into the bathroom and take a nice steamy shower, and you'll bounce right back. And the neighborhood-friendly pharmacist at Rite Aid is there to help you manage prescriptions, get your prescriptions on the same time with one-trip refills, all of that and more. So stop into your neighborhood Rite Aid and talk to the pharmacist about scheduling vaccines, getting personalized care recommendation, and simplifying your life online with your prescriptions. So transfer your prescriptions to Rite Aid today. Just go to riteaid.com/transfer. Rite Aid caring pharmacists are ready to answer your questions and help you stay healthy. Get your prescriptions along with anything else at Rite Aid you might need, including all the over-the-counter medications, household products, cosmetics, and more. Just ask your pharmacy team for details. Restrictions apply.
Fran, the Eagles are the only team in the NFL that has not scored a point in the first quarter this season.
I'm glad you brought that up.
What do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole goal.
It's not good.
No, it's not. It's obviously a small sample size, yada, 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 but one of 32 teams to not do something. 4
first quarters is a whole game.
Yes, yes, and you're one of 32 teams to not do it. So clearly something not working well in the first quarter of games in terms of that opening script. You typically script out your first 15, 20-ish plays as an offense, and it's not going to go 1, 2, 3. There's some down and distance context were provided, but you want to try and do things early on to get yourself into a rhythm, to set plays up for later, to try and generate some early momentum. And it's been anything but that, obviously, for this Eagles offense.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you would think it's like your best plays are the ones you're most comfortable with, given the defensive matchups you're going against this week. So, like, to that point, it is kind of disheartening that they can't get it going. Like, these first 15, dating back to Andy Reid was always the ones you felt most strongly about and all that. So to see it not be effective does make you question a little bit of Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni. This offense in general, I mean, you have Saquon Barkley. You know what I mean? Like,
how many carries did Saquon have?
He had 8 at half.
He had 10 carries total.
Yeah.
10 carries total for 84 yards. So you had one that went for 59.
Yeah, I believe it was 8 in the first half.
Well, and Nick was asked about it. He said, well, we only had 9 plays in the first 3 possessions, and 3 of them were third down. I'm not going to run the ball then. But
hear that was actually Vinny's jaw hitting the side of the table. He couldn't believe that.
It is. I mean, I know that the game flow got away from them, and they're already down 7-0, and then the second possession they're down 14-0. But, like, entering this game, you certainly would have thought, like, on offense, this game has to go through Saquon.
Listen, you got to find a way to get him involved on third down.
Yeah,
he's obviously the best player that's out there. Being that everybody's hurt.
I mean, if I'm thinking of everybody on the team through 4 weeks of the season,
he's the best player.
Who has outperformed expectations entering the season? It's Saquon Barkley, probably Quinyon Mitchell. Probably Zach Bond, relative to expectations. Brandon Graham. That's about it.
Maybe Reed Blankenship.
Reed. But I mean, he's a small playing handful. At a steady level. Like, maybe Mekhi Becton if you want to make a case. But
Saquon, you can make the case, has been the best player on the field in at least up till today, the first 3 games. And today you didn't really get a chance. There has to be a point when you're down 7 or 14-0 where you can still slow the game down and get your best player the ball. Like
screens. I expect screens.
Yeah.
Because the D-line started getting hot.
They did call one, and it got batted away. It looked like that one could have been a big play.
Yeah, I mean, here's how the first 3 drives went. So you had an incompletion to Saquon Barkley on that scramble drill.
And Jalen has got to make a better throw there.
Yeah, it was a bad throw.
It could have been a touchdown.
Yep, a bad throw lands out of bounds. But that was a out of structure play. So then you come back, you call a run play to Saquon Barkley that goes for no gain. Levante David blows it up the line of scrimmage. That brings up 3rd and 10, and now you're out. Second drive, 1st and 10, throw to Dallas Goedert incomplete. That was the drop. That was a nice ball from Jalen. He put it right on Goddard's hands.
That was a really nice throw. Probably his best throw of the day.
Yep, 2nd and 10. They call a run for Saquon. So 2nd and long run. Saquon goes for 3, brings up 3rd and 7. Vita Vea gets in for a sack for -10. Third drive, you have a incompletion to Grant Calcaterra for nothing. So that's brings up 2nd and 10. Then you throw the play action screen to Barkley. That goes for 0 yardage. And then 3rd and 10, incomplete to Jahan Dotson on a fade route down the left sideline. So they tried to get
the ball. It's just, man, damn.
All right, let's dip into Jalen Hurts and hear
me on that side of the ball, and I would get down like we did. We got to help. I have to help the defense out, executing, communicating. The things that I'm seeing on the field. And just trying to really create the momentum that we need just to get in the end zone. It starts with me in terms of getting in the end zone and leading drives, and I didn't do a good enough job with that.
I know you don't want to make excuses, but when you don't have Devontae and AJ, how much does it limit you guys?
I didn't play good enough. I didn't play good enough. That's what it comes down to. We had opportunities. You know, it's put a lot of time in this week to take advantage of this game and what we had and the guys that, you know, we had a lot of trust in. And we took advantage of some and some we didn't. But ultimately, it starts with me.
When you avoid a rusher, does your internal clock have to change knowing that he's still somewhere in the pocket?
I'm sorry?
When you avoid a rusher like you did on the strip sack, does your internal clock have to change a little bit knowing that there's at least one body in the area?
I think it's a matter of being decisive and knowing exactly what you're about to do. I think if we get that ball off, we have an opportunity to grant Calcaterra down the middle of the field. Just didn't end up having enough time in that situation. So,
it's 4 games now without a first quarter point. What needs to be done to start clicking these games?
I got to start fast. I have to play better.
Are there common threads in those games that are problems that are stacking up that are leading to this?
I don't know if I can pinpoint that.
You were talking to a lot of different guys after this game. I'm talking to Fran. What is the message in your mind that needs to be expressed to this team right now?
Just keep pushing. Keep pushing. You know, we've experienced different adversities. Just have to continue to learn from these moments. That's been the takeaway from every game that we've played. We got high aspirations as a football team. We've grown together, and we'll have different adversities that'll challenge us. And we just got to continue to grow and learn from everything we experience.
On the first play of the game, I recognize it's easy for me to ask this from this side of the podium, but did you think you had Saquon there on that play?
I had the opportunity to him for sure. Didn't make it. Threw it away.
Dallas said that this team needs to find its identity during this week and the next week.
Threw it away on purpose.
Do you agree? Do you think this team has an identity, or do you think you need to develop it still?
I think there are a lot of teams in this point of the season that don't really have an identity. I think we're still trying to figure that out. I think it's challenging when you've had different moving pieces throughout in that. And so given the opportunities you have, it's truly a so what now what mentality, and that's the approach that I've had. I just don't think I've been good enough in those areas. There isn't a doubt of anyone who steps on that field in terms of opportunity. We got to give guys opportunities and put guys in positions to be successful. And I have to play point out there and distribute it, really run the show and lead the charge offensively and as a team. And I got to be better at that.
How difficult is it when you have, like you mentioned, all these new faces, in the huddle, pretty much for the last 3 weeks and everything, just kind of adjusting and dealing with all that kind of adversity?
Yeah, I don't look at it as a difficulty. It's something that's different. It's something that you adjust to. And I had a ton of confidence in the guys we had going out there today. I just, I don't think I did enough. I clearly didn't do enough. You can point fingers wherever, but, I own all of that. I touch the ball every play, and I take pride in that.
I know you guys didn't have a lot of...
What is your process when it comes to correcting a turnover? I know immediately after a play you're analyzing, but how soon do you return to it after a game? How do you
look at how and why. There are a ton of different things that go into it. Ultimately, the goal is to protect the ball. That's the goal. I think there have been a ton of different situations where different things have come up, and then they've all kind of been different in a sense. But you just have to learn from them all.
This is an early bye week. Will you approach this differently? How will you approach it the next however many days before you get back to practice?
I just assess these first 4 games. Obviously, everyone get healthy and continue to press on and move forward.
With the turnovers, you're among the leaders this year and last year, which is different from the earlier parts of your career. How do you kind of process that, and what will be the operation this week to help get that fixed?
Yeah, I got to be better. That's the only thing I can say. I got to be better. I think things will be better once we establish our identity for ourselves, and we're trying to figure that out.
Did you take time to talk with the players as a team after the game, like you did after the Falcons loss? BG
actually took the throne and had great words, and everybody he led that charge. Everybody said something in between time, but everybody understands that we're going to do this together. we went out there and we didn't do good enough as a team, and that's led by me. I didn't do good enough. I'm in my position, and so we just have to learn from it.
How's the game plan affected or changed when you're down 24-0 early?
It's just a matter of responding, really, reacting to what's going on. You have different things in the flow of a game when you go in and say, I'm going to attack a team like this, but ultimately you got to go out there and play ball, have a feel for the game and what they're doing, and I think we just all have to be better with that, starting with me.
You said a few times that you have to play better. What's at the top of your list right now to improve?
Production. I think production. Taking care of the ball. And, just the efficiency. We have to put points on the board. That starts with me.
Nick, Jalen, you and Nick are obviously big voices on the team as the head coach and the quarterback. As you enter the bye and you want to find an identity, do you two talk about maybe, what you want the message to be to the team or how you kind of want to handle, as you guys go into the second part of the year?
We have our moments.
What's your plan for the bye week?
I don't know yet.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, we will hear from Zach Berman shortly. I think Zach was in that press conference. Hustling up to get to us now, I'm sure. Out of breath. Tough bachelor party yesterday. So
Belly full of bananas Foster.
Yeah.
By the way,
worried that Vinny's going to get mad at him again for not keeping him in the book.
100 degrees in Tampa, and he's wearing a bomber jacket?
He's cool. He's a cool guy.
I mean, it's a cool looking jacket. It's hot out there. What are you doing, Jalen? Get that bomber jacket off.
Cool. All right. Before we get to Zach, we'll tell you one more time about some of our sponsors here, and we start with TrueMark Financial, our friends at TrueMark who have what they call the HELOC. That is the home equity line of credit. A HELOC allows homeowners to borrow against home equity with a variable interest rate. You can preserve your savings and get access to funds as needed for big renovations, education expenses, or emergencies. Use TrueMark Financial's budgeting tools to save for special purchases like limited edition merchandise or maybe a nice bomber jacket. You can get regular contributions that accumulate over time to reach saving goals effectively. Let's say you transfer as little as $5 a week. Well, end of the year, pick up your head. That's 260 bones. More than enough for a bomber jacket or a Kelly Green jersey. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit truemark.com/PHLY. That's TRUMARK.com/PHLY.
Yeah, sometimes Bird's losses like that make me want to run to the fridge and grab a Miller Lite to just kind of forget about that one. It's the original light beer since 1975, and to this day, it's still the best one. Because whether you're watching a game with friends or family or going up to the mountains or down the shore or on the golf course or pickleball court, wherever it is, Miller Lite is got great taste and it's less filling. So you're not going to get that bloated, gross beer feeling because Miller Lite keeps it simple. Undebatable quality, great taste, and only 96 calories. They got rid of everything they don't need, and they held on to what matters most, a light beer that tastes like light beers should taste, and only 96 calories. You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, you can go to MillerLite.com/PHLY Birds, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories per 12 ounces, fewer calories and carbs than a regular premium beer.
All right, Fran, here's my question for you.
Okay.
Over the course of the first 4 games, the Eagles' defense is 27th in EPA per drive and 18th in success rate. So let's say that there's something like the 24th, 25th best defense in the league, something like that, a bottom quartile defense. The offense, 11th in offensive EPA per drive and 13th in success rate. So like the 12th best offense in the league. Now they've been missing some players. Which of those two is it more important for the Eagles to get right, to get better?
It's more important to get the offense up to elite level because if you have an elite offense, that's going to certainly raise your floor and your ceiling in terms of your standing in the division and your ability to win the NFC East. So that is the most important. That said, you also don't want it to be a bottom quartile of the league defense either. So both are important, and I think that it's just a matter of knowing, like, you have elite talent on the offensive side of the football, so you need elite production. And right now, if you're the 11th best offense, that's not elite production, and so you're not getting what you're paying for there. defensively, you've got youth, you've got some turnover, you've got some new additions. Obviously, it's new schemes on both sides of the football, but you want your offense to be elite, and right now it's not operating like an elite level.
And what I am kind of worried about is intellectually, I know that when you have two new coordinators on both sides of the ball, it's going to take some time, right? Like you can't expect it to be good right away. And yet, being in it right now, 4 games into the season, I'm a little bit disappointed in like the edge that the Eagles seem to be getting by these new coordinators. Vic had one awesome game against the Saints. Packers game was fine, right? These last 2 games, or the week 2 and week 4, have not been very good. And aside from week 1 on offense, we have not seen anything super interesting from Kellen Moore. This week was an opportunity to maybe see something like that. And I've been a little bit disappointed by the edge that they seem to have gotten on both sides there.
Yeah, you were hoping for a little bit more, certainly, and now you do anticipate that you're going to get a little bit of improvement with it being a new system on both sides. The guys get a little bit more comfortable. Certainly, offensively, getting AJ back, getting Devontae back, that will help things. But right now it's not what they need in order to be one of the best in the NFC.
Do you have memories, Vinny, of like scheme changes and how long it felt like it took for guys to get comfortable?
Yeah. Remember in 2012 we went from 4-3 to 3-4.
Yep.
And then in 2016 we went from 3-4 to 4-3.
Yeah.
And then anybody remember that first couple weeks when we went from a 3-4 to 4-3, we were struggling.
Mm-hmm.
But then once it clicked, and then the next year we won Super Bowl.
And then the second year you get to the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And had one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah.
What's the hardest part about? Obviously, you made the switch to and from, so I'm sure it was probably a little bit different. But what's the hardest part when you do make that scheme change? Is it terminology stuff? Is it the execution on the field?
I would say for us, it's just understanding what you do best and how does it fit within the scheme without freestyling or doing your own thing.
And I imagine also that goes both ways, right? The coordinator understanding what his players do best and how to put them in those positions, right?
And that's why I'm not hitting the panic button yet, because they're going to go
We need you to be the voice of reason.
They're going to go into the bye week, and then they're going to get things right, and they're going to put guys in the right position, and they're going to scheme up some of the players, and we're going to be bringing some heat, and then it's going to get us right.
So, Vinny, we looked at each other.
Eagles fans' ears. Go ahead.
Me and you kind of looked at each other when Jalen said it. BG addresses the team after the locker room. He's, Mr. Leader, Mr. Veteran.
We saw losers.
So what is BG speaking today tell you? That somebody needs, the veteran in the room needs to take control of this?
Man.
Tell guys what they need to hear?
We saw losers. At the end of the day, when the expectation is here, and the accountability is here, that will make you elite. But if the accountability is not here and the expectation is still here, you're fooling yourself.
So we know BG is Mr. Affable, always smiling, puts everybody in a good mood. What's he like now when he addresses a locker room after a game like this?
He damn V-Dot. No, he one of those. He's a sore loser as well. He's like the rest of us, and I know he's pissed. And this is why I said there's something. It's very fixable. If he's talking, it's very fixable. You know what I'm saying? It's just doing your job better. That's it. For a little longer, doing your job a little longer, doing your job better, and with more effort. That's it. Everything will take care of itself.
Why do you say that if he's talking, it's fixable? Because he knows that they're close, and he says, "Hold on, just give me the mic. I got this."
Yeah, yes. And let me tell you, Brandon Graham is one of the most guys on the team that can get you out of a dark place. It's very, influential, and inspiring. You know what I'm saying? So he got that in him.
So when he talks, people they're on notice.
Has he done that for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We came in this thing. We're part of the culture change.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That was when Philly was going through that culture change, and the whole how this team is this. Remember, I remember during my rookie year, guys was out there with the bags on their face. I'm like, oh, like that was crazy.
Yep.
But then now look at the run from 2012 to right now. The expectation is here, you know, and it's a reason why it should be there. So why not have that leader that was part of this new regime and the new coaching change talk to the locker room? So I'm not hitting the panic button with y'all.
All right. There you go. Big positive. BG addresses the locker room. I love it.
The adult. Speaking of adults, let's bring on our friend Zach Berman live from Raymond James Stadium. Zach, how you doing? How sweaty are you?
It's hot, not as sweaty as the players on the field or in the locker room, but I did try to hustle up here, so I got a little sweat on the brow, but it's worth it to get on the show and see Vinny.
All right, what was the pulse of the locker room? So we hear that BG spoke to the team in the locker room afterwards. They just got it handed to them. They've got a bye week coming up. Was this a dejected bunch? Was this a sanguine bunch? We know that what we need to do to get it fixed. What was the pulse?
Long to change, quick to exit. That's how I would explain it. A lot of guys kind of lingering before they got into the showers, whether it was conversations about what happened or just kind of figuring out, I don't want to say wallowing in the result, but a lot of guys sitting around, not quick to the showers, but then once they got showered, quick getting out of there, right? So you know this well as a beat reporter, Bo, is in that, like, you are waiting for the guys to change, and then and usually there's like different there's different times when you get different guys. Everything was kind of happening at the same time here today. So, but overall, the mood was exhausted. To use what one player, what Avonte Maddox said, it was hot as F out there, and there was
good self-censoring. Good job.
Yeah,
we know you like to work blue.
But then the explanation was like there was understanding that they just got their rear ends beat. It wasn't shrinking responsibility, if you will, but it was an acknowledgement that the bye could be coming at a good time. There's things they need to fix. A big talking point was that they need to find their identity and kind of hone in on their offensive identity. Defensively, I obviously did not hear the start of your show, but I did hear, or start of our show, I should say. But I saw a tweet up that you had the amount of time Baker Mayfield got rid of the ball. That was one thing you heard from the defense, is that he was getting rid of the ball quick. So I did ask what was part of the game plan, playing off coverage, and they said they got to go back and watch the film on that. But clearly, I would say this wasn't like the most dejected locker room I've ever been in, but I think this was an exhausted locker room. Just to give you some color, on the way down, I saw C.J. Gardner-Johnson in an ice tub getting an IV from trainers, right? You saw him exit the field. He was in an ice tub getting an IV. Like, that's how it was. These guys were exhausted. And I understand Tampa played in the same heat that they do, but as like Paris, I was talking to Paris Campbell about this, and he said, Tampa might be more used to it, right? It's not like this in Philly. They really felt it out there.
I don't know, Vinny. Do you feel like that's like they weren't prepared enough for that? I mean, you talked about like some of the secrets you learned along the way.
Listen, you can't never prepare for no damn heat.
Okay.
When that thing it had to be over 100 degrees out there. It's very rarely that you'll see the Bucs put up their tent. That's how that gives you an example of how hot it was down there. Yeah. So, but you got to take it upon yourself, and hydrate all throughout the week. Just keep hydrating, keep pushing those fluids down, because what kind of environment you get ready to go into.
That's a personal.
Zach, they made me lose my voice. I was so damn mad after watching that thing, man.
Go ahead, Fran.
I was gonna say the hydration thing. That's a personal accountability thing too, right? Because they can give you all the fluids outside of putting the IV in your arm. Those guys, to a man, have to take care of that on their own, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then you hydrate. Then you go on the plane ride and you get ready to go into this heat.
Right.
Airplanes.
They got to be doing what Fran does. You got to see the size of his water bottle.
It's sitting out there.
It's insane.
It is a big water bottle.
It's like a town's well. It's nuts. Zach's got
ZB
one
would be proud.
as well. Zach, we do have a super chat that wants to know how the Bananas Foster was and urging you to hydrate. So we'll wrap that into one.
Yeah, so actually, in the spirit of the show, I did try the Bananas Foster. It was a tight call because I had to meet two listeners at halftime to sign a book, and so I was kind of fighting the crowd to get down there. The franchise out wherever books are sold, and so then I came up and I didn't want to miss any of the game. You know, Saquon had that big run to start the half, to start the second half. So I got kind of in between drives. So I didn't finish it, but I knew I had to have it for the show. It remains the best Banana Fosters I've ever had in a press box before. So
wow, big statement.
Yeah.
Nice.
But as you said at the on the kickoff show, you've been having it in that press box for a long time. Has the level dropped?
No, you know, maybe it was because I didn't do it at halftime, so there was no line. The banana to ice cream ratio was actually very good this time. So credit to she hooked me up with 2 scoops of the banana of like the Foster part of it, and I gotta say,
bachelor party weekend.
I wasn't gonna finish it here, right? It was just kind of the taste tester for the show, but they did a good job.
So, Zach, what was your impression? Once again, you know, defense might have been the biggest problem today, but Jalen Hurts and the turnover issue, unfortunately, continues, and it's going to be a talking point amongst the Eagles fan base here going forward, probably in a pretty big way. What was your sense from Jalen about the turnovers today? He seemed to be kind of 2-word Jalen in his press conference there.
Yeah, Jalen was taking responsibility for the turnovers, which was interesting because Nick was not putting it on Jalen, right? You guys heard Nick, I presume.
Yes.
And he was kind of going through the functions of the strip sack, how the quarterback gets assigned for it, but it's not on the quarterback. And so you might have heard me follow up with Nick saying you can say that from an isolated perspective. If you look at it globally, there's been these untimely turnovers in situations, you know. I know they were unlikely to win the game at that point today, but it was a 2-possession game and they were driving, right? I mean, they were in position to make it at least a 10-point game, maybe a 7-point game, right? As Jalen said, the ball's in his hands every play. He's got to take responsibility for it. I think I understand Nick's point about the strip sack component, but I also think there has to be a presence that the quarterback has in that situation. You're under duress, right? You can't be fumbling the ball in that spot. And if it's isolated, okay, but you look at it, they're minus 6 this year in turnover differential. Jalen has 27 turnovers dating back to the beginning of last year. We talked about the Falcons game, the interception there. This is happening too frequently. So, yeah, Jalen took responsibility. You know, there was one point, it was interesting when he said, we need to play better, and then he changed we to I. And I thought that was telling because nothing with Jalen is unintentional. And I thought it was intentional that he changed that from we to I because I do think he wanted to put the target on his back, if you will, but he needs to fix this because they are not a good enough team to be turning the ball over at the rate they are. And as Nick has been consistent with this all along, it's unsustainable to expect them to be in the red in turnovers and win the game. And it starts with Jalen because he touches the ball every play. And I understand Nick's point about that's a defensive stat too, and the defense isn't taking the ball away enough, but the offense is turning the ball over too often.
So let's stick on the offense, Zach. The Jalen of it, a little bit aside, are you comfortable just writing this off as they didn't have A.J. Brown, they didn't have Devontae Smith, they didn't have Lane Johnson, they're going to get those guys back after the bye, the offense will be okay? Or do you think there are deeper issues at root here?
I think there are deeper issues in terms of the way they're starting games. They're the only team in the NFL that hasn't scored a point in the first quarter of a game this year. They were 3-and-out. By the time they scored a point today, it was 24-0, right? That affects your offensive game plan. A big talking point among reporters asking questions today was Saquon not really getting much involvement early in the game. And you heard Nick's answer to that it was really only 6 plays, that you're talking about, 2 touches and 6 plays, because they were in these 3rd and longs. But if you look at kind of the rhythm of it, he was not getting, they weren't handing the ball off on first down. They weren't getting in the 3rd and manageable. So I think that, clearly this offense is much better without A.J. Brown. Is much better with A.J. Brown and with Devontae Smith and with Lane Johnson. That said, when you go into a game, when you come off the bus knowing you don't have those guys, and knowing your wide receivers are Jahan Dotson, Paris Campbell, John Ross, Johnny Wilson, then you need to call the game accordingly, right? And I think part of that is leaning on Saquon, leaning on Dallas Goedert. Fran Duffy had in his opponent notes the keys to the
Former
game.
Temple coach?
Yeah, one of the keys to the game that Fran had, and I thought this hit it on the head, was not getting in 3rd and longs, right? Because of what Todd Bowles can do in those blitzing situations. Also, let's face it, when you don't have your best players, your best pass catchers, it's hard to convert 3rd and 9 and 3rd and 10, right? I mean, the odds are already against you there. So I thought that there could have and should have been things they could do on those early downs. Now, that said, you can kind of go play by play, and I know if I was having this conversation with Nick, he would do that. The first play of the game, the first offensive play of the game, that could have been a touchdown to Saquon. And I asked Jalen about that, and Jalen said there was a play there to be made. So
that's not right. You're right. That should have been a touchdown.
Yeah, the second first down of the game, Dallas Goedert needs to. That's a ball Goddard can catch. So the counter to me can be these first down plays could have and should have worked, but I still think that coming off the bus, there were things they could have done with Saquon to get into more 2nd and 3rd and manageable situations.
Well, and also, Zach, to that point, too, let's not act like Saquon Barkley is just unusable in 3rd and 7 and 3rd and 8 situations. There is a world where he can catch the ball and be a part of your offense when it's not an obvious rushing down. And we haven't seen that. There really has been no, kind of outside-the-box offensive thinking, no ingenuity, no creativity. I know they're down, but, kind of pisses me off to hear that, 2 of those downs, you can't really count on Saquon. Yes, you can. Get him involved in the game.
Yeah. Although I would say that there were a lot of our listeners who were probably ready to drive Brian Johnson down to Washington because of 3rd down running plays, right? But I hear you there, and I mean there's ways you can get him in the screen game like we've talked about.
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley and Dallas Goedert were their 2 offensive weapons today going into the game. You need to maximize the amount of touches they have.
Yeah, I don't like that answer at all of, 2 of the downs we can't use Saquon. What are you talking about? That's literally your job. He's the best player on the field almost every second he's been on the field this year. Figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, Nick was addressing more the run.
I know, I'm just bitching.
Yeah, I hear your point there. And I think it is, that's where
Vinny's nodding his head. He agrees with me, so I got him.
I know the origin of this question. The origin of this question was playing without AJ and Devontae. And that's where I think you can look at this game from an isolated perspective and from a global perspective. From a global perspective, they have a problem coming out of games, and they have a problem starting games. I should say. So the way historically, when Vinny was there and when the Eagles have been best, they get on you early. Okay, they take early leads. Then they can control the game with their offensive line.
You okay?
And can pin the ears back. People are hacking up around me. But they are consistently playing from behind. And to me, that is the biggest problem on offense right now. I get the turnovers, but I think the fact that they're consistently playing from behind and they're not able to kind of create that offensive identity early in games has been a problem.
And what would you say is their biggest problem on defense right now?
The lack of a pass rush, without a doubt. Now, look, Brandon Graham and Josh Sweat both had sacks today. It shouldn't take until week 4 for an edge rusher to get a sack. But overall, I don't think this pass rush is imposing. When you look at the matchups they had going into the game, you could have identified 2 or 3 spots on that Bucs offensive line where you say, all right, the Eagles can take advantage of this. And they did not. And you could say Baker is getting rid of the ball quickly. And I understand rush and cover needs to kind of work together. But the reality is the investments on this team on defense, by and large, are made on the defensive line, right? And I understand you can point to the first and second round pick this year at corner, and they're paying Slay, and I get that. There's more invested in corner than maybe in the past. But still, where the money and the picks are invested is on the defensive line. And we've been talking about this since the offseason. And if they are mediocre as a pass rush group, and, my radar was up when I was speaking to Jeremiah Washburn back during the summer, and we were talking about where the pass rush is coming from. And he said, who's going to be the big sack guy for you? And the answer is it kind of needs to be the sum of the parts, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts type thing. Right. And I think that is that's concerning, because what you want is blue chip guys. You want the guy you're paying $17 million a year to, if he's in a one-on-one situation against a backup tackle, to get to the quarterback. You want your first round pick from last year. I'm talking about Nolan Smith here, but I'll include Jalen Carter in that. You want your first round pick from 2 years ago. You want these guys to be in the backfield, to use the phrasing that Nick Sirianni said, playing on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And the Eagles don't play on the other side of the line of the scrimmage nearly enough. They did it against New Orleans. They had an outstanding game against New Orleans. They haven't done it since, and that's been a problem.
So, Zach, if you are a young man scheduled to wed, and you have your nice bachelor party weekend in Tampa Bay with your brothers, you have a good time, you have a great dinner, but the Sunday is spent watching your favorite team get shellacked, and you're sitting there in 100 degrees. How does that go over? What kind of experience is that like?
You know what? I haven't spoken to my brothers yet. I do have an article to write, but I will meet them for dinner, just because they're down here. And so I will get the lowdown from them. I got to imagine they had a lot to sweat off. So maybe the heat was good in that regard. But no, I think, look, this is a memory nonetheless. But the game itself is probably not a good memory for them.
Oh well. Well, that's
hey, Zach. At this point, do you play Devin White?
I'm curious if Devin White's on the team when I get in that locker room next. So
he did address the Twitter thing. He said he meant to just heart the post, not retweet it.
Yeah,
so, human error, I guess.
This could be one of those Friday at 4:00 during the bye week.
See you later.
Where they try to do that news dump. Look, I mean, Bo's made fun of me going back to the summer. I like Devin White, and I thought Devin White could be a factor on this team. Clearly, the coaches don't think so. He's not going to help you on special teams. But given the fact, I don't know the personal nature for which he was absent today, but I do think it would. At this point, I'm surprised if Devin White plays it down for the Eagles this year.
Yeah, what do you think is the status of the group text thread with him and Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown?
Probably dormant right now. But hey, there's a lot of room for motivational sayings for sure.
There you go. All right, Zach. Any final thoughts? Any final color to give us from Tampa Bay?
Yeah. So look, I'm looking forward to being on the show tomorrow. I do think I need to vacate this room any minute here. But I will say that a big sentiment was, like I mentioned, that the bye's coming at a good time. This team's been on the road 3 of the past 4 weeks. I know the first week was a home game, but between, and I'll defer to Vinny on this, but I have lived this now, traveling every weekend for traveling 3 or 4 weekends, that does wear on these guys. It certainly wears on me. So I think there's an eagerness from the group to, even though it's an early bye, there's a sentiment that it's coming at a good time for them. Jalen Hurts wouldn't tell me what he was doing during the bye, but I got to imagine that there's a part of this where the coaches are, Nick said they're going to look at every turnover. They're going to figure out the slow starts. But I think for the players, this is a chance to kind of rest, regroup, and try to go into that October portion of the schedule where I don't want to say it's a little softer, because I thought the NFC South portion was going to be a soft portion for them. But I think that even though they won't say this, I think if you told them that they'd be 2-2 after 4 weeks, and you didn't have A.J. Brown for 3 of those games, you didn't have Devontae Smith and Lane Johnson for a game and a half, it's like, all right, take that, and then try to get some momentum going into October and November. So that's kind of the big picture. And then, I'll say this. I spoke to Isaiah Rodgers about that punt, about the punt situation. He said that he was trying to push, he didn't realize the rule there that I have to listen back specifically, but he thought, I guess once it's a fair catch and then you get pushed into it, it could be a dead ball, like it's not a live ball there. Cooper DeJean didn't.
So he was just trying to mess up. He was just trying to get Cooper DeJean hit. Like
no, he thought it was like he thought he was doing a veteran move. I believe where like he could try to force a penalty in that situation.
Well, let's not do that anymore.
Yeah. What is that? That's a bad excuse.
The Rodgers mouth, but I think he thought that he thought it would be a penalty on the receiving team. On the punting team in that situation, right?
That is so funny. Because even so, you're getting 5 yards and you're getting Cooper DeJean crushed.
Yeah, Nick said he'll learn
you think
from
that's
that.
worth it?
Cooper DeJean got crushed twice. I asked Cooper DeJean how he came out. Yeah, he said he's fine. He was a little frustrated after that second one there, but spoke to those guys. I think as Avonte Maddox said, it was hot as F out there, and that was a sentiment that a few of those guys shared in similar type of terms. In my conversations with them.
And what does F stand for?
Bo, I'm trying to keep a job when I land tomorrow.
Foster.
So, yeah.
Fosters.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Zach Berman. Make sure that everybody picks up the franchise, Philadelphia Eagles, a curated history of the Birds, wherever books are sold. We're going to talk about that a little bit more this week on Wednesday's show. We look forward to that. But, Zach, otherwise, you and I will be in studio tomorrow at 2 o'clock, flights dependent.
Yeah. I truly, as a friend, I appreciate the plug for the book, but I do want to say I hope everyone reads allphly.com. I have a column that I'll be working on that kind of gives you some of the different, similar to last week. It'll be a flavor of some of the different things that I heard. It'll address a few different points, and then have a fun story coming up a little later this week. Maybe at this point I'll have it early next week during the bye, and then looking forward to some of the things we have coming up on allphly.com. So make sure you're a diehard.
Thank you very much, Zach.
Thank you.
All right, let's run through our super chats before we get going here.
That Isaiah Rodgers thing is wild.
Wild, right?
Yeah, that's not a good look
at all.
No, that's not a good look.
In the National Football League, bro. Yo,
let's quit doing that.
I don't think you should have said that part out loud.
I wouldn't have said that.
Yeah, just say you made a mistake or you tripped or something.
Yeah. I didn't want to get him hurt. Yeah. All right, Richard Fitzwell, our friend, says,
Richard.
An owner with a spine lets Nick go tonight. There is no objective reason to keep him around. Game plan is on the head coach regardless. I imagine that he is not the only one of these super chats potentially calling for Nick's ouster. Cole B says, I've had enough of Jalen Hurts. He stinks. 2022 was a fluke. What's Carson Wentz up to? At least he drug a sorry cast of receivers to a division title. Vinny, how does it feel to be on the other side of this and hear just how people talk about the players sometimes?
I thought Alshon Jeffrey was a beast.
Well, he's talking about 2018 or 19.
He's talking
19. About when they went when they were not a good team. But
yes,
Alshon absolutely was a beast.
Yeah. I was just, the biggest thing is being on the opposite side. I ain't got no voice. So I started to feel like now I see where a lot of the frustration was coming from and everything. Like, God damn. And then you hearing people don't know some of the rules and stuff. Like, come on, man. It's crazy.
I agree with that. Claude Debussy says, hard to feel good about the future when you know the GM will face no accountability for this roster's shortcomings. He'll get to pick another head coach and quarterback. This is perfect. We have the first three comments. Get rid of the coach, get rid of the quarterback, get rid of the GM.
The trifecta.
Yeah. Team's 2-2.
I can't agree.
Yeah.
No, Howie's a made man. He's safe for a long time.
Now, listen, I think Howie does bear a lot of responsibility for the state of the team right now.
I also think he's pissed off too.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I would imagine Mr. Lurie going down to Tampa and getting embarrassed by Todd Bowles over and over is quite embarrassed.
It won't surprise me if some get shaken up by 4 o'clock. Going into the bye week, one of those days.
Yeah. I think that's certainly possible. But, I mean, we can talk about Howie, but, like, he's done a fantastic job in the aggregate, but, the Bryce Huff signing is not looking too good.
That's a whiff.
Third-round pick for Jahan Dotson's not looking too good. Like,
Kevin
CJ
Byard
Gardner-Johnson is not
year.
playing up to his, We'll see.
Yeah.
Rory says, Brady calling out Hurts' inability to read defense, and a skull emoji that, Brady, he was willing to be a little bit tough. What did you guys think of the Brady experience today?
It was fine. Yeah, I didn't think he was
okay.
Yeah, it was. He's a little rough around the edges still as a color guy. But
I thought the funniest thing was him like actually being mad at Baker Mayfield.
Oh, that was outstanding.
This is a country club you came to, Baker.
Yeah. No, I love that.
That's not a daycare. Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
That's not a daycare because Brady doesn't hang out with kids. Rohit says, I just hope they can get the 7th seed. Realistic expectation. Joe Sox says, so the Eagles do not run in the first half now? QB2? And that is along the lines of what Chase Daniel Plainview says. I don't believe the offensive production today would have been any different with Tanner McKee at quarterback. That can't happen with a franchise QB. I mean, I do think they win the game if Tanner McKee is the quarterback. That's just me.
Looking back at last week now.
That's a bit.
Looking back at last week now, I really believe if they didn't pull that game off, I know it's not Lurie's way. It's not his thing. If they're 1-3 going into a bye and Todd Bowles just spanked your head coach again, I think that's a real conversation they're having during the bye week of can Kellen Moore just step in for the rest of the year? Because
I think he would have considered it. I really do.
I do too.
I don't think that he would have pulled the trigger, but I think if they were 1-3 and there was the Falcons loss, which was very much sort of on Nick.
Oh yeah.
I think he would have thought about it.
I think that's a real possibility. And I think Nick's reaction, I mean, the man was crying after a week 3 win.
You're so hung up on the crying.
Well, because I think it tells you he feels like he knows his days are limited. He is a bad week away at any given moment from losing his job. And, it's to your point about the players' locker room, like they gotta bail Nick out here because my man is on the griddle.
Well, I thought Daniz made a really good point on Friday. That, for all of the hand rigging we can do over the game management stuff, last week, after having a crushing last second loss, they came out to play. Everybody was ready to play against the Saints. And that is, the coach deserves credit for that,
sure.
Right? Like the thing that he said in the press conference on Friday about we focus so much on the X's and O's, but I think the relationships matter probably a little bit more. Nick Sirianni is here to get these guys to play hard. But if you're giving him credit for that for last week, you have to say that this week they go down and lay a complete egg, the entire team, all 3 phases. And so that does fall on him a little bit. And so, I think he's going to be the coach for the rest of the season. I think that probably makes sense. It would be a little bit nuts to cut bait now, but he has to prove that these guys are willing to play for him right now.
I think, like I said, going into the bye week, I think he's going to reevaluate some things and how things have been going on. And I think that he's going to be more hands-on with some stuff.
What do you think the most obvious change is? BG starting and playing more? Maybe doing that dirty work and being a pinner and setting an edge.
Listen, I would
Can
say,
BG be the third receiver?
He might be able to.
I would say just, like I say, on defensively, just scheming things up a little bit. Just putting guys in different type of positions now that you got something to play with. And I think on the offense, you get your weapons back. I think it's a different conversation.
Yeah, I mean, A.J. Brown is one of the great colognes in this league. There's
even if you had Smitty out there today.
Sure.
It's a different
I mean, you
game.
went from one of the best wide receiver rooms in the entire NFL to Jahan Dotson, John Ross, and Paris Campbell today. I mean, that is a massive, massive downgrade.
There's absolutely a scenario in which we look back at this game.
Sure.
In 2 months, and we're like, oh man, remember that game they had to play without AJ and Devontae and Lane, and they got smoked? Well, that wasn't such a big of a deal. Like, those guys are all healthy. The offense looks good, but I mean, the defense needs to take a step forward, and I think the quarterback right now needs to take a bit of a step forward. So,
at least protect the ball more.
Yeah,
because they're just not good enough to overcome turnovers.
Anything that you think, Fran, is like a big bye week must do?
I mean, going back, I do want to watch the defense of all 22 and just get a sense of exactly what happened from things looked so easy for the Bucs in the first half of this game. And they clearly made some adjustments because then things became not so easy. But I do want to see exactly what buttons Tampa Bay was able to push to make things look that way in the first few drives. It may have been as simple as, hey, they came out in heavy personnel and were able to get the Eagles in base defense and spread them out and create easy completions that way. My gut says that wasn't the whole story. But look, when you have things like the missed tackles, because that's not scheme. Like Vic Fangio is not fixing. Tell me wrong. Like Vic Fangio is not fixing missed tackles. Like that's not on Vic Fangio. Those guys in the locker room are adults. Those guys have been playing football their whole lives. Like they know how to tackle, but you got to go tackle. And so there are things you can do in terms of getting back to basics, and they'll drill stuff and things like that. But at the end of the day, this was not an offense that was. Rachaad White was not the hardest running back to tackle in football. No. Bucky Irving is a 4th-round rookie, not the hardest back to tackle in football. To me, going back, I think there are things that they can tweak. Look, we talk about the press coverage thing, and they were last in the league in press coverage coming into this game defensively. That's just the way that Vic Fangio plays. They typically play with their corners from depth, but they were in the top 5 in terms of contested throw rate. Those guys are always around the football. In this game, guys were too often wide open. Those guys did make some tough catches for the Bucs, but overall, again, things looked so easy. So what are the things they can tweak? Yeah, there are some minor things, but I almost want to kind of wait until I watch tomorrow to really get a good sense.
Do they have the personnel to play good enough press, do you think? Or is that something with Vic that's just a staple of his and it's not going to change regardless of the personnel?
I think it goes hand in hand with like the amount of man coverage he typically plays. You go back over the years, he typically doesn't play as much man. But then the year when they had Patrick Surtain and they were like, shit, our secondary is pretty good. Yeah, we're going to play a lot of man and we're going to be able to blitz and we can do some things. I do think that the Eagles have a pretty good starting corner duo. They have a talented duo in terms of Slay and Quignon, but not to the point where you're going to play a ton of press man and feel like you're going to be okay.
All right. Well, a lot to work on for the Eagles over the course of the next couple of weeks, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it all week long on the PHLY Eagles podcast, 2 o'clock every day this week and the week after. That'll do it. The Eagles go to the bye 2-2 after an ugly loss in Tampa for Vinny Curry and Jamie Lynch and Fran Duffy and Andrew behind the scenes. We thank everybody for watching and listening, and for Zach as well. We will talk to you tomorrow. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.